Hey, what's going on there, guys? Nick here from Absolute MTG, and today we are going to be taking a look at this Deck Builders Toolkit, and I'm going to be helping you guys build your very first Magic the Gathering deck. So, every year they come out with a new one of these Deck Builders Toolkits. It says, as on the box here, it includes 285 cards. It has some booster packs inside, 125 semi-randomized cards, 4 15-card booster packs, 100 basic lands, a deck builder's guide to building the best Magic decks, a rules reference card, and a reusable box, which this is. So, let's open it on up, see what we have inside, and I'll help you guys with actually using the contents of this box to build your first deck. So, this is mainly for the people that are brand new to the game, you don't really know what you're doing, and you want to get started and put a deck together. Alright, so this slides out. And we have our deck box here. So once we open this up, we'll see inside that we have a pack of Magic Origins, Fate Reforged, Dragons of Tarkir, and Journey in the Nyx. Super interesting that they chose to put Journey in the Nyx in here, but either way, it doesn't matter. 4 booster packs. We have our inserts for the Deck Builders Toolkit and how to play Magic. More cardboard. We have 4 packs of cards here. So first and foremost, let's close this up, put that off to the side, and we'll actually take a look at these packs of cards. So inside of here, we have a variety of different things going on. So it looks like they do give us some rares here. So we have Aegis Angel, Mahamuti Jin, Nightmare, Shivan Dragon, and Terra Stomper. And then a bunch of commons and uncommons. So we'll just kind of quickly go through and skim through these cards. And it's a nice assortment of all of the stuff that's been in Standard recently here. Including some new stuff from Magic Origins as well, which is, at the time of this recording, the newest set that is currently out. And the last core set to actually be featured in Magic. At least for now, unless they decide to change that. But this was supposed to be the very last core set. So, from here on out, we actually go to a 2-block structure, or a 2 set per block structure, and a different rotational system than we previously had. But that is not too important if you're just kind of playing the game casually. It's only really important for people that are playing competitively. Alright, so that is the first brick of cards here. One of these is just going to be lands. So once we get to that one, yeah, it's going to be this one. So this is our huge brick of basic lands that we get to build with, which will be important later. You have Evolving Wilds on the front here as a worse fetch land. So what they do with these Deck Builders Toolkits is they kind of are going to separate different themes or different things that they want you to start with, and they separate them throughout with the Evolving Wilds. So here we have like a black-white, we have a blue-red artifacts thing going on in the back there, just mono-red with the first section here, and then blue-green. So they already want to give you a couple of ideas of what you should be building or what you could build out of the cards that they're giving you here. So that's always pretty cool. We'll skim through the cards real quick first, just to take a look at them, and then maybe we'll go along with what they suggest for us, maybe not. It's usually pretty easy to build just kind of straightforward decks like mono green big things, mono red burn, and aggro. It's easy to stay along the kind of pre-built path for us and what's usually expected of Magic and the different colors and what they do. So the blue-green looks like it's a morph. Yeah, it's a morph sub-team, which is cool. So they're taking a lot of different a lot of different archetypes over the past year that we've seen, and they're kind of throwing them in. Like Cons featured the whole warrior sub-theme and warrior synergy. But this was something that I actually didn't really pay attention to the last time I was doing one of these openings. And somebody happened to point it out, or actually a lot of people pointed it out in the comment section. They were like, oh hey, by the way, you totally missed the fact that these were sectioned off as different themes that you could build around and kind of get started with. But that is the cool things. That's the cool thing about having a comment section and people that watch the videos, is that sometimes you just don't catch things and other people do. And yeah, they'll let you know. Maybe sometimes they let you know that you're just absolutely stupid, but most times it's actually pretty helpful. Alright, and for the last brick of cards that we have here. Bloodfell Caves. So we do have some dual lands. Blossoming Sands, Dismal Backwaters. That's really sweet. Previously we didn't really have the pleasure of being able to build with these out of a deck builder's toolkit, but it's sweet that they included these in here. And then we have more lands. Yeah, just more basics. So we'll throw the basics on top here again, and we'll throw the dual lands over here as well, so we can build with those. Not entirely sure why just one Spider Silken Net was hanging around. I guess maybe it was supposed to go in here, I don't know. So yeah, those are our semi-randomized cards. Now we'll take a look at what we have in our booster packs. Alright, so we have Oakheart Dryads, Feast of Dreams, Hubris, Satyr Hoplite, Grown Mastiff, Humbler of Mortals, Flurry of Horns, Thassa's Devourer, Gluttonous Cyclops, Disciple of Deceit, Hour of Need, Triton Cavalry, and Eidolon of Blossoms is our rare, so 2/2 for 4 Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, draw a card. And we'll foil a Dictate of Karametra, so it's a flash enchantment for 5. It's also another rare, which is really sweet. Whenever a player taps a mana, or taps a land for mana, that player adds 1 mana of his or her, adds 1 mana to his or her mana pool of any type that land produced. So effectively giving us a little bit more mana to mess around with and being able to ramp into bigger stuff, if I could actually read today. Swamp and a insert. So pretty interesting. What we're actually going to do here is we're actually just going to sort. We're going to put our rares off to the side. Rares are, they shouldn't be a focal point in deck building. However, they are important sometimes in building decks and having like better or good cards. So we'll actually separate our cards by color here. We'll put the land on top and throw the tip card up at the top. But yeah, so maybe we can put something different or new together here. So we'll kind of keep these sectioned off and keep this going. All right. So Dragons of Tarkir, I'm not really going in any order. I wanted to get the Journey into Nyx out of the way first, though. But we have Center Soul, Coat with Venom, Closedon Yearling, Gurmag Drowner, Revealing Wind, Sarkon's Rage, Vial of Dragonfire, Butcher's Glee, Glint, Display of Dominance, Savage Ventmaw, Quarsai Deceiver, and we have Harbinger of the Hunt as our rare. So 5/3 for 5 flying, and for 3 it deals 1 damage to each creature without flying, 2 and 1 red. 2 and 1 green, it deals 1 damage to each other creature with flying. And we have a foil negate. That is really, really sweet. I really like this card. Time and time again, this card sees a lot of reprints, and over time it's really cool to see the different art that they choose for this card. But a foil negate's really cool. So we have our Harbinger, that's going to go over there. And yeah, we'll put the negate over there too. It's pretty cool. We'll actually throw this over there and that up there, and we'll wait to sort this. I should have waited to just sort everything at the end, but oh well. Yeah, we'll open up Origins now. So we have Touch of Moonglove, Act of Treason, Mighty Leap, Macabre Waltz, Send to Sleep, Caustic Caterpillar, Aspiring Aeronauts, Yeva's Force Mage, Fiery Impulse, Knight of the Pilgrim's Road, Mage Ring Network, Conclave Naturalists, Towergeist, Mage Ring Responder as our rare, so 7/7 for 7, doesn't untap during your untap step, 7 mana, untap him, and whenever it attacks, deals 7 damage to target creature defending player controls. A swamp and a tip card. Not the most impressive rare, but a cool one nonetheless. And Fate Reforged, last pack here. Let us see just what we get inside. So we have Ancestral Vengeance, Warflare, Soul Summons, Sultai Skullkeeper, Reach of Shadows, Whisper of the Wilds, Mardu Runemark, Ambush Krotik, Right into Being, Goblin Heel Cutter, Neutralizing Blast, Mardu Woe Reaper, which will play into our Warriors theme if we decide to do that, Diplomacy of the Wastes, and what do we have? We have Mastery of the Unseen as our rare. Really cool card. Enchantment for 2, and whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. And for 4 mana, manifest the top card of your library. Put it face down onto the battlefield as a 2/2 creature, and you can turn it face up for its mana cost if it's a creature card. I actually really like this card, and we have a Thornwood Falls as another dual land, so we get to add that there, and hopefully build with it. So now that we have all of our packs opened, we can go ahead and do some more sorting. So we'll actually go and sort by color here. Not entirely sure if we're just going to stick to what the Deck Builders Toolkit has told us are our archetypes or potential archetypes within here, but we'll see. We do have a lot of really cool cards. Just off the top of my head, like I really want to build around like the Harbinger of the Hunt that we got, the red-green guy. However, I'm pretty sure last time I did one of these videos, and it feels like every single time I do one of these videos for deck building, I just kind of gravitate towards red-green. It's definitely one of the easier themes to actually build around and kind of show people like, oh hey, your red cards deal damage or are going to try and get rid of creatures or are going to be aggressive. Your green cards are generally just going to be like huge creatures that are just going to deal a lot of damage, have a high power and toughness and stuff like that. It's pretty easy and pretty easy to distinguish the cards based on the colors and what their identities actually are. And it seems like I said, green, red always is just one of those things that people will just kind of get, especially when you're trying to teach them magic and deck building and whatnot. But yeah, we'll see here. We'll do some quick sorting. And I actually don't really want to make a huge amount of like cuts in the video and just kind of stop and do this off camera. I actually want to take you guys through the the first-hand experience of how I would actually approach this if I had to do this and build from one of these deck builders toolkits. So now we have all of these cards sorted. The Warflare is pretty cool. We do have the Ventmaw that plays into red-green. We have a Woe Reaper that plays into Warriors. I guess we might as well even go and just kind of sort these guys on through as well and see what we can do here. So we do have the rares that were given to us. What else do we have? We have another Skirmisher, which is a Warrior. We have Eagle of the Watch. Silk Wrap's a pretty cool card too. Alright, now what would we do here? So, one of the nice things about Magic is that there are a variety of different formats that you get to actually play in, and that you have the opportunity to play whenever you're playing like competitive. And one of my favorite things to actually play is Sealed. So, with Sealed, you're given 6 booster packs and you build a 40-card deck from there. Usually like 23 spells, creatures and spells, and then 17 lands. And it's kind of like that type of experience going on here with trying to put a deck together out of just a sealed assortment of cards and not getting to bring in your own deck and your own pre-built stack of cards. So yeah, let us just see, what can we do with our rares? I guess that's a good looking question as well. We'll put those up there. So none of these are really too impressive, I guess. The Aegis Angel is pretty cool, giving indestructible to another thing, but it's a 6 cost card, which isn't bad, but it's pretty expensive. Dhamamati, Jin's Flying. Nightmare is just going to benefit us if we play a mono black deck. Shivan Dragon, it has fire breathing, so the more red we play and the more ways we have to pump it, and hopefully our opponent not be able to block it, then we just get in for a whole lot of damage. And Terra Stomper is just the apex of green stompy creatures. 8/8 for 6, can't be countered, and has trample. We have Harbinger, Eidolon Blossoms, which if we play a bunch of enchantments, it actually will draw us some more cards, and the Dictate of Karametra, which ultimately just adds more mana for us. So what can we do here? Well, mono red is always a pretty straightforward thing. It's pretty easy for people to just look at red cards and go, okay, all these guys deal damage. I'm sure we can put something together here. So with mono red, we actually won't need the Evolving Wilds. So these ones are going to sacrifice themselves and tap, and then search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. However, if we're just playing a mono-colored deck, we don't really need that. There is some merit in playing those to thin your deck and get less lands in your deck. That way you draw and have a higher probability of drawing other things. However, not really as necessary for us. For basic deck building, that's not something you really care too much about. So, I mean, if we're playing mono red, might as well just go and throw a stack of red cards on here and see what we can build with. Maybe we have to build a 2-color deck, but we'll just see. Maybe we'll end up playing the blue-red artifact deck, but I think just for the purpose of basic deck building, we might as well just grab all these red cards and try and put together just an aggro deck, just a basic mono red aggro. All right, so we'll just put all of the rest of the cards up here, and so now where do we go from here? Another thing that I like to do with deck building is to actually separate the creatures from the spells. So we have just a stack of red cards here, and it might be hard to distinguish what you actually have and what you're actually going for here. So we'll take each card and separate them based on whether it's a creature or not, and then from there we can see just kind of what we can go with. So if we don't have a massive amount of creatures, maybe we can play a burn deck. If we can't necessarily play a burn deck, then maybe we shouldn't be in red. So it seems like we do have some cool stuff to be able to actually play around and build with, but it doesn't really seem like we have a massive amount of creatures here, which could be a problem. So what we want to be going for is about 36 cards in our main deck, leaving us roughly 24, maybe like 23, 22, depending on how high our cards go in converted mana cost. So that's something that is a little bit more important whenever it comes to, well, how many lands do you actually want to draw in your deck, and how much mana do you actually want to see in any given game? So we have, what, 3, 6, 9, 12. 12 creatures, which is a little bit low. So maybe we can see if we can get some support from another color. I liked the whole artifact idea, so maybe let's go ahead and... Where was that stack of them? They were just here. I'm definitely not crazy. These are just the lands. Is that the bottom of here? Yeah, it is. There we go. So we had our theme of blue and red artifacts. Do we have anything else that could help us with that? We have the Shivan Dragon and the Jinn, but those aren't necessarily something that help us right now. We have these 2 blue-red dual lands, and we got another one of the blue-green ones, but oh well. So let's see what we can do here. We'll keep the lands on top for later. So what does this guy do? So it has haste 2/3 for 4. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may have it deal damage to target creature equal to the number of artifacts you control. Alright, that's pretty cool. That's cool in an artifact deck. Chief of the Foundry, which makes artifacts bigger. Artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. I definitely like that. Briber's Purse, you put it in with X amount of gem counters on it by paying X. For its mana cost, 1 and tap, remove a gem counter from it, and target creature can't attack or block. Oh, that is cool. Not necessarily if it's necessary for us, but it's cool. Guardian Automaton, 3/3 for 4. Whenever it dies, you gain 3 life. That's a fine card. Aspiring Aeronaut makes a colorless Thopter, so it adds more artifacts onto the battlefield. That's what we like. Singing Bell Strike. Tap down a creature, it doesn't untap, and for 6 mana they can untap that guy. That's cool. And the Spider Silk Nets. Not entirely sure if we'll play these, but we'll see. So right here with just kind of starting out, what we want to do is just find cards that we think are just kind of well-rounded and something that we want to build around. So our general theme here was that we wanted to build with artifacts or otherwise just kind of play a blue-red deck. So again, even though these cards aren't necessarily artifact themed, let's go ahead and just kind of separate things based on it being a creature or not. So we'll keep this in a separate pot because we already said that we wanted some of those. So creature, creature, not a creature. And we just kind of do a process of, well, will this actually help us? Like, yeah, we have another one of the Aeronauts, so that'll definitely be something that'll make its way into our deck. Hour of Need and Hubris. So now it looks like we have a bunch more creatures to be able to play with. So we do have our Aspiring Aeronaut, which we looked at before, so that's something that we might want to play with. Triton Cavalry, whenever you target it, you may return target enchantment to its owner's hand. Not necessarily very good for us. Not sure if we'll play that. Thoughtless Devourer, it's a mill card with Constellation, so whenever an enchantment enters, target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her grave. Not really great for us. Gurmag Drowner, 2/4 for 4. Whenever it exploits a creature, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, rest into your grave. Nah, not something we really need. So another Towergeist, so basically the same thing as the Drowner, but only for 2, basically. Skullkeeper, Coreside Deceiver. Lucio Spellfist actually might be useful for us. So 1/3, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, gets +1/+0, and can't be blocked this turn. So if we're playing a bunch of non-creature spells, we can kind of pump this guy up and get in for some free damage that our opponent really can't stop. We have the Surveyor. So return target creature to its owner's hand whenever it enters the battlefield, or put a +1/+1 counter on it. I actually like that guy, but again, not sure if we'll play him. We have the Fairy Miscreants, which whenever it enters, if we control another Fairy Miscreants, we draw a card, and Frostwalker, 4/1 for 2, whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, sack it. Cool card, again, not sure if we'll play it, but the Miscreants, we don't really have a bunch of those, so we're probably not going to end up playing those. Alright, so what do we have in red? Do we have any guys that just involve themselves around artifacts? So we do have these 2 guys that I remember from Origins. So Gearpoor, Gearcrafter, and Thopter Engineer. So the Gearcrafter and the Engineer both make Thopter tokens. So whenever they enter the battlefield, they put a 1/1 colorless Thopter token onto the battlefield, and the Engineer is the only one that has anything on top of that that just kind of adds to that, where artifact creatures you control have haste. So that is actually pretty cool. So yeah, we'll put these 2 guys in there. We'll add back towards our artifact theme. And let's see, what else do we have that is based around artifacts? Do we have any more artifact cards? We had the Nets, we had the Briber's Purse, we had our Vial of Dragonfire, which wasn't all too impressive, but it's an artifact card nonetheless. So 2 mana to actually play it, and 2 mana, tap, sacrifice it, deals 2 damage to target creature. Not really the most impressive, but... Now, do any of these cards deal with artifacts? Doesn't seem like it. But we do have a bunch of removal So we do have a bunch of spells that actually just get rid of our opponent's things, which is really, really sweet. So from here, we can just kind of identify what we're going to be doing with our colors as well. So we have multiple, I think we had multiple, yeah, we have multiple Arc Lightnings, we had multiple Sarkhan's Rage and Wild Slash, same thing with Bathe and Dragonfire. So we can play our removal cards in red that are going to deal damage to our opponent's creatures, and they're going to rid them off the board. So with this, we can try and patch things together. So what all do we have here? We have the 2 Dragonfires that deal 4 damage to target creature, 2 Sarkhan's Rage that deal 5 damage to target creature or player. If you control no dragons, deals 2 damage to you. That's not all that bad. It's still dealing 5 damage to a creature or a player, so we can actually target that at our opponent as well. 2 Wild Slashes that deal 2 damage to target creature or player, and if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, the damage can't be prevented this turn, or damage in general actually can't be prevented this turn. 2 Arc Lightnings that deal 3 damage divided as you choose amongst 1, 2, or 3 target creatures and or players. And not sure if we'll play the Act of Treasons or not. We do also have the Ravaging Blaze, deal X damage to target creature. Spell Mastery, if there are 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, deals X damage to that creature's controller. On top of that as well. We also have Lightning Javelin, which deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and Scry 1. I like that. Not really a huge fan of the Twin Bolt dealing 2 damage as you choose amongst 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. We kind of want more higher value removal and higher value damage that we're dealing off of them. But another card that I actually do like is the Rune Mark. This card is actually pretty cool. So Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. It has first strike as long as you control a white or black permanent. So even though we're not playing a white or black deck here necessarily, it still could be cool for adding it onto a creature, especially like the elusive Spellfist that we were previously looking at that can gain unblockable if we cast a non-creature spell for the turn. So putting that onto the elusive Spellfist could provide for some free damage to actually deal onto our opponent. So the stack of cards that we have here, though, are non-creature spells. So what we want to probably do here is try to complement that with some actual creature spells and getting some more creatures rolling here. So fortunately, this stack of artifact-based stuff and artifact cool things that we had are actually creatures. So all of these are creatures, and from here we can just try and find a way to just kind of patch things up and keep things going here. So we have the Mardu Scouts, which are 3/1s with dash. We have the Valley Dasher, which is a haste creature with 2/2 for 2, Mage Ring Bully, Prowess, so it gets bigger based on our non-creature spells that we're casting, and attacks each turn if able, but it's a 2/2 for 2 nonetheless. We also have Monastery Swiftspear, which has Prowess and Haste, and is a 1/2 for 1, so I actually like these guys a whole lot. The Satyr Hoplite could be cool. Heroic, whenever we cast a spell that targets it, we put a +1/+1 counter on him. However, I think the only card that we really had in our stack that targets our guys is the Rune Mark. The rest of our stuff's kind of just removal for our opponent's things. So the Monastery Swiftspear and the Mage Ring Bully definitely fit into that, and they definitely play into what we're rolling with here. However, the Satyr Hoplite, not really as much. What else do we have? Maybe the Mardu Scouts would end up being good. The Heel Cutter is definitely a really cool card. I actually really like this guy. So we can dash him in for 3, or we can cast him for 4, and whenever he attacks, target creature can't block this turn. So I actually like that guy a whole lot. We'll jam him in here. So what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. 22 cards, so we're looking for about like 14 more cards here that we can add towards our deck. So what other non-creature things do we have in our stack of cool cards here? So we have Anticipate, which could add towards the whole prowess and artifact theme that we're going for. So Anticipate, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, the rest onto the bottom of your library. Hour of Need, exile any number of target creatures, and for each creature exiled this way, its controller puts a 4/4 blue Sphinx creature token with flying onto the battlefield. You cast it for 3, and you can strive and pay 1 and 1 blue more for each target beyond the first, and turn them into 4/4s. I actually like that a whole lot because we're making all of these like 1/1 tokens and 1/1 artifacts that we have, and we can just kind of exile them and bring in some 4/4s instead at an instant speed, maybe even throw off our opponent's combat and respond to them attacking with a big guy or a bunch of smaller guys that they would assume we're just going to trade 1 for 1. So I actually like the Hour of Need a whole lot. We'll add these 2, so that's 24. We have Sent to Sleep, which taps down 2 creatures, and with Spell Mastery, those creatures don't untap. We have Hubris, return a creature and all R's attached to it back to its owner's hand. Glint to give a creature hexproof. Neutralizing Blast, counter target multicolored spell. Right into being, manifest a card. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, manifest one of them, put the other onto the top or bottom of your library. I like the Singing Bell Strike. It's another type of removal spell, I guess you could say. It gets around our opponent's creatures, so tap down a creature and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step, and 6 mana they can untap it. So that's definitely sweet. The Disdainful Stroke is definitely interesting. It just kind of depends on what you're playing with. Like if you're playing casually and you know your friends are playing like a bunch of huge green creatures that cost like 4 or more mana, then counter target spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater would definitely be a good card to actually be playing. We have the Weave Fate, which allows us to draw 2 cards for 4 mana at an instant speed, and Into the Void, return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands for 4 mana. I actually like that a whole lot. So Into the Void and Singing Bell Strike, you guys make the cut, so up to 26. So all we have to do is find 10 more cards here. What else do we want to be playing here? We actually had another one of the Singing Bell Strikes. So we have 2 Singing Bell Strikes. Do we want to play some more enchantments here? The Briber's Purse, or not enchantments, artifacts, excuse me. We'll play the Briber's Purse just because it's another way to keep our opponent from attacking or blocking. What other creatures do we have? We had the Towergeist, we had the Gurmag Drowner. I like really evasive creatures, so creatures with flying or this creature can't be blocked or otherwise any effects like that are really cool and are really nice to be able to build around. We actually might find some use in playing our Djinn now. So where was that guy? Yeah, there he is. So our Djinn that we were looking at previously, this guy actually might be useful for us because it seems like we can stall out the game to the point where we can just make it to late game and just kind of play this guy and just start bashing from there. So as long as we have a way to just kind of stabilize and keep our opponent from doing a whole lot in the early game, then we are kind of smooth sailing there. We also have the Aven Surveyor, which can throw back one of our opponent's creatures to their hand, and it also has flying, so we'll throw that guy in there as well. And what else do we have? We have the Gluttonous Cyclops, so this guy can get bigger, and it's a 6-drop. Not entirely sure if we need this guy, just as another 6-drop. We already have our Muhammad Djinn for bigger creatures. As long as it's your turn, Prickable War gets +2/+0 and has First Strike, and he's a 5-drop 3/3. We also have Fiery Hellhound, which can get bigger based on paying red into it. I actually like this guy. He's a 3-drop and adds towards a more aggressive early start to the game. What else do we have? Flurry of Horns making 2/3 red Minotaurs with haste at a sorcery speed. That's not awful. Let's see. What else? So now it's probably useful to go back through and just kind of take a look at how many creatures we have again, just to make sure we're kind of on course with what we're playing here. So there are decks in the game that some decks just don't play creatures at all. They'll win with spells and playing planeswalkers and things of that nature, so they really don't care about creatures very much. So it looks like we have just a huge stack of non-creature spells. And what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have 14 creatures in this deck for us here. So what else could we add to just kind of get things rolling? So 14, let's see, we have 14 of those, 20, 23, 26, 29, and 30, 31. So 31, we're looking for about 5 more cards. So let's try and jam a few more creatures in here. The Frostwalker might not be too impressive for us, just because our opponent can kind of easily get rid of it. We have our Deceiver, which can help us stall out the game. It's a 0/4 for 2, and it adds mana to our mana pool. But we can only use it to cast face down creatures and pay the mana cost of manifested creatures to flip them face up, or otherwise pay their morph costs. The Drowner is kind of interesting, although I'm not sure that we want to be sacrificing our creatures off exploit. We might end up playing the Towergeist. The Thassa's Devourer is also cool. We'll actually end up playing the Flurry of Horns, because this is kind of a pseudo creature card. So this is actually going to make creatures for us, and it's going to make 2 of them for the 5 mana we're investing in it. So we'll throw that in there. The Satyr Hoplite, I still think, is not really going to do us much benefit here. What else can we do? We have Tormenting Voice, which allows us to draw cards. Fiery Impulse, which, well, we'll actually play the Fiery Impulse. So that's 2 more cards, so we just have to find 3 more. So our Fiery Impulse deals 2 damage to target creature. If we have 2 or more instants or sorceries in our grave, it deals 3 damage to that creature instead. So just some more removal to get rid of our opponent's stuff. We could play the Dragon Fodder, which makes 2 1/1s onto the battlefield. And what else? We have our Mardu Scouts, which, much like our Frostwalker, have a huge amount of power, not very much toughness, but are going to just kind of sit on the table in the early game and could be very aggressive. Let's see. Maybe we go for that Dragon Fodder and we just keep on adding towards what we could potentially be doing here. We could also play Send to Sleep to keep our opponent's things tapped down. But I think overall we're pretty much going to end up playing this Towergeist, just because it's another flyer that we can get in, and it's something we can get over our opponent's creatures and what they're actually doing. So 2 more cards. 2 more cards here. Let us see. The Hubris throws back a creature. Send to Sleep taps down creatures. Glint protects ours. We have the Negates that will stop our opponent from their non-creature spells, which could be good. We also have Weave Fate that will allow us to draw cards. We have our 2/6 Thassa's Devourer. Do we have any enchantments, though? That's really the big question. I don't think we have any enchantment creatures, because they're pretty easily distinguishable by their border around them. And I'm not sure that we actually have... We only have 1 real enchantment. Or actually, no, we have multiple enchantments. Singing Bell Strikes. We have the Mardu Rune Mark. So we do have 3 enchantments going on for us. So yeah, we'll actually throw this in here. Maybe, maybe we actually won't beat our opponent by just kind of dealing damage really aggressively in the early game. Maybe we'll try to get their good cards out of their deck. So the Thassa's Devourer, whenever it or an enchantment enters the battlefield, your opponent's going to put the top 2 cards of his or her library into their grave. So maybe we'll be able to actually just mill out our opponent and get their good cards out of their deck by playing the Devourer and also having like the Singing Bell Strikes and whatnot. So what do we need? Like 1 more card? Just a 1 more card? Maybe we can find another enchantment here that we can play. So the Claustrophobia actually looks pretty good. So we can play this Claustrophobia, which will, whenever it enters, tap down the enchanted creature, and enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So that is cool. If we could have gotten more Thassa's Devourers, that would have been sweet, but even for the purpose of just putting something together and a trial and error run of deck building, that's still pretty cool. So we have these Silk Nets that I'm pretty sure we're not going to play. And just to run things through and count again, so we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36. Alright, so we have our 36 cards here. So what is next? Now you have your 36 cards, like what are you actually doing with this? So where we go from here is trying to figure out how many lands we're actually going to be playing in our deck. So the next thing to do is to actually separate these cards and go, all right, well, this is how many red spells I have, this is how many blue spells I have, this is how many actual sources of red mana I'm going to need, and how many sources of blue mana I'm going to need. So we're going to go through and separate these based on their color. And at this point, it doesn't matter what type of card there are, whether it's a creature or not. It makes a slight bit of impact based on when you actually want to like see those cards. Like if you have a bunch of creatures that are like red, and they're just 2-cost cards, then you probably want to fix your mana towards having a lot of mountains in the early game, and maybe you have like a bunch of blue cards that are just like double blue, but they're 6-drop cards, so you really don't care about seeing islands until the late game at that point. So yeah, now that we have things separated by color, the next thing to do is to just kind of figure out a ratio. So the easiest thing to do is just kind of grab your lands and go, all right, well, what all do we have that we can actually build with here? So we have our Evolving Wilds, we have our Swiftwater Cliffs. Put that in the frame a little bit more. So we have those that we get to build with. We also have another Evolving Wilds that's peeking somewhere around here. There we go. So we have 4 Evolving Wilds and 4 Swiftwater Cliffs. So that is going to bring us down to about 18 other lands. So we're going to be playing with 24 lands here. And as you play more Magic, you'll realize that, all right, well, maybe my deck needs a few more lands. Maybe it needs 25 or 26 lands. Maybe my deck needs a few less because I'm just playing a red aggressive deck. And as all of the cards are only like 2 or 3 mana, I don't really need that many lands to actually draw. As you keep on playing the game, you learn these adjustments and you learn the different things that you actually need to approach and the different ways you need to build your deck. So just as a starting point, what we're going to do here is we're just going to grab 9 mountains and 9 islands. So that's going to be our starting point, just 9 and 9, because that is our other 18 that we have in our deck. So what we have to do, just grab 1 and grab 1 and 1 more. Already grabbed 8. So this is where we are going to start off figuring out our mana base. Otherwise, it's just pretty simple to use math to figure it out. You can find your total mana symbols amongst all cards you control. So what you would do is actually count out how many symbols you actually see amongst your cards. So every time you see one of the red symbols in your card, you just keep on adding it towards a total. So 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And because we have this blue-red card, we can add it towards it. However, because we're not playing a 3-color deck or anything like that, it doesn't really make a huge difference in our actual calculations. It'll still basically be the same for us. So 21 here. And for our blue cards, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 and 21. So with this 16 and 21 that we've just figured out, we add those numbers together to get 37, and then from there you're going to be taking 21 divided by 37, which will give you a percent. That percent is then multiplied into the total number of lands that you have that you're trying to figure out, how many you're trying to play each of, and then from there that actually tells you how many lands you want to be playing in here. So the numbers actually aren't hugely off. From here, 21 and 16 are at least slightly close together. It's not like it's like 4 and 20 or something like that. So just even without doing math or without trying to figure anything of this out in my head, let's just go and we'll take out 4 islands and we'll put 4 mountains in. So where was the brick was over here. I keep on forgetting which actual stack of these is what. I mean, obviously the lands are on top of here, but I'm still pretty oblivious to everything anyway. So we took out 4 of our islands that we don't seem to need as much, and we put 4 more mountains in. And again, without even doing math, this seems like just a okay adjustment into what we want to be playing. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this even still seems... Where did we go wrong? Did we not add these back in? So, no. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we wanted 5 islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, there we go. So 13 mountains and 5 islands. We also have 2 Swiftwater Cliffs, which will count as either a island or a mountain for us, and 4 Evolving Wilds, which can fetch up either a mountain or a island for the purpose of our deck building and actually playing the game here. So the next step in what we want to do here is, yeah, we actually have our deck together, but I mean, you don't really know if it's actually good. So we'll take all of our cards and we'll just kind of shove them off to the side here, just kind of slightly out of frame. That way we can actually go and we can test things out and see if our deck actually works the way that we want it to. So now that we have this deck shuffled to some extent here, it's just a matter of playtesting it. So seeing whether or not this is suitable to our tastes and our play style. So we have 7 cards here, and let's see just what we can do with this hand. So for this hand, we have 3 sources of red here. So we have 3 mountains, so we can play our red cards in our hand. However, we can't play that Singing Bell Strike. This still seems okay, though, and we can hope to see that 1 source of blue. Maybe we might not end up even really needing it at all. So we can start off our turn and playtesting here with our 1 mountain. Maybe our opponent plays like a small aggressive creature. We can play the Wild Slash on it. So let's just assume that that's exactly what we did. Then for our turn, we're going to go. We draw another blue card, which isn't really great. It's not really what we want to see, but that's okay. So we play our second land, nothing else we can do, so we just pass the turn. And there we go, there's our island. So we have our island, and then from here we can play our Ghirapur Gear Crafter. So this Gear Crafter, whenever it enters in, it is also going to make a 1/1 Thopter for us. So we don't really have any Thopter tokens, so that's okay. We can just use one of these tip cards that were inserted in our booster pack. So we have our Thopter, and then next turn we have another island. So that'll help us if we see any double blue cards later on. So there is our second source of blue, and from here we can play the Aspiring Aeronaut. So whenever it enters, it's going to make another 1/1 token. So we have another 1/1 artifact token that just gets added in on here, and then we can attack with the Gear Crafter and the 1/1 if we so choose, and if it's beneficial towards taking our opponent down in life and it doesn't cost us too much for the actual attack itself. So that seems just fine for like the first playtest session, if you will. So now let's get rid of these cards again, reshuffle here, and try to see what we can do for another playtest hand. Alright, so we should be about good and shuffled here. We'll just cut the deck again, and let's try a new hand of 7. So as long as this works for us, 4, 5, 6, 7, exactly 7, there we go. As long as this works for us, this might be what we just go with and what we want to be playing. So unfortunately, this hand is a little bit more rough. So with this hand, we have 2 mountains, and those are the only lands we have. We have a Chief of the Foundry, which plays into our artifacts, and that would play into our Aeronaut that we have in our hands. Unfortunately, we also have a Mahamatijan that we're not going to be able to play until turn 6, a Flurry of Horns that we're not going to be able to play until turn 5, a Claustrophobia that we have to draw 2 islands for. So this doesn't seem like the best hand to actually keep, and under most conditions I'd probably mulligan this, but we'll actually just draw the next 2 cards and see if we get there. I'm going to assume we probably don't, but maybe we do. We have a Mountain, which isn't awful, and a Swiftwater Cliff. So we actually would get there if we happen to be ballsy and actually keep this. And from there we have an island, another island, so we're drawing a lot of lands actually, and the Briber's Purse. So not too terrible. But normally I would mulligan that, so that's what I'm actually going to assume that I do here. And we're just going to draw a new hand of a fresh 6 cards. So we'll just give it some sort of fashion of shuffle. And we'll give it another small cut. I just don't knock all the cards around. And yeah, let's draw 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so from here, yeah, this seems just fine. So not much better because we have like 6 cards as opposed to 7, but that's just a-okay because we have our Swiftwater Cliffs, which will provide red for us, Monastery Swiftspear, and Briber's Purse. So to start the turn off, because we actually want to cast this Monastery Swiftspear and Thopter Engineer on curve, at least to some degree, we want to play our Swiftwater Cliffs tapped, and it'll gain us 1 life. So this will just be tapped for our turn. Then next turn we get to draw. We have Fiery Hellhound. Unfortunately, we can't really cast it, but we can play our islands and we can play our Swiftspear now. So if we want to make this Swiftspear bigger, we can actually go and we can pay 1 blue, and we can play the Briber's Purse for just 1 for its X value. However, we can also play it on later turns and just make it have a higher X value. So, like, if our opponent didn't really play a creature or anything like that, we can just attack with the Swiftspear for 1. We don't have to be super greedy. We just get in for that 1, and we just deal the damage to him. Then the next turn, we would draw. We have another island. Not really the most beneficial thing for us right now. However, we do still get to play our Thopter Engineer. So our Engineer is going to enter in with the Thopter. We attack with our Swiftspear if able and possible, and if it works for us. And then we draw. So we have the Goblin Heel Cutter. This guy's just great. So the Heel Cutter, we can either dash this guy in for 3 mana, or we can actually cast him for 4 mana, and we can put him onto the battlefield. So this guy, whenever he attacks, target creature can't block this turn. So it could provide for another way for us to deal some free damage to our opponent. Maybe they only have 1 blocker that they have held back. But for the sake and purpose of playtesting, this also seems like just another fine hand that we drew. Singing Bell Strike, which will help us tap down our opponent's creatures. Aeronaut, which will add towards our artifacts and other creatures that are attacking alongside. And Gearcrafter, again, doing pretty much the same thing for us. So I actually think we are pretty on par with how we're actually building this deck. And then from there, you pretty much do exactly this whenever you're just building any other deck. You just kind of look at your cards and you kind of spread them out and you just go, okay, well, these 3 cards look cool. Let's try and build a deck around them. You don't want to get too caught up in just playing around certain specific cards. Sometimes maybe your strategy isn't really as strong because you're only building around those cards. However, it might actually make for some cool deck building and some really interesting and cool ideas. So that about will wrap up our deck building here for this video for the Deck Builder's Toolkit and how to build your first Magic the Gathering deck. Thank you guys for joining me and sitting through this lengthy video on how to build a deck, and until next time guys, peace out.